Hello and welcome to Lost in Chronologically Lost, where this time, after 80 or something episodes, we finally find out what happened after they blew up the nuclear bomb.
Yep, turns out they just got transported
Yeah.
right to the
Okay.
time that they should have
That's
been.
honestly what I expected, just because at that point, what else can you do? But see, I'm a little annoyed at you, because I thought that Juliet would live, because I'm like, okay, everybody's injured, everybody's lying there, everybody's probably getting transported back to the future, so her too. And then I think a few episodes ago or something, you told me, like, well, Juliet's last moment was lying there injured, of course, I don't know if she's gonna live. I was like, what? There's no way she died, even if she was right next to the bomb.
She fell down like a
Okay,
50-foot chasm.
I'm just saying, I was happy to see no, she didn't die, but then she dies anyway. Which, I get that it's an understandable death. People die. It's a difficult situation. It's not going to be a happy world where everybody lives. But it's a shame to see her die, because she was great.
Yeah, she was great.
Now
This
it's
was
final.
this was pretty sad. Something else I should note is that just the last time we recorded the episodes that we covered, which was a while ago, just for real life reasons. Son asks Richard Alpert about all the people from in the 70s, and he says, "Oh yeah, they all died." The reason he says this is because the alternate ending scene for season 5 was like Richard Alpert looking at everyone at the construction site suddenly like disappearing in a flash, and that's why he thought they died.
I felt like I didn't even think about that. I just thought he knew them.
Yeah, but then they changed the scene, but then they didn't change the previous line to set it up. So it's like,
Well, it's like they knew, like he knew that the bomb went off. So I feel like that's not like a stretch or anything. It's maybe not tied together perfectly, but it doesn't feel like a plot hole to me.
yeah, okay, yeah, but that was just what that whole thing was supposed to be about.
Okay.
But anyway, so
That line was supposed to be setting it up.
yeah, it was supposed to be setting up a scene that they then didn't put in the show.
So we start with Kate waking up in a tree, and we get some, audio shenanigans because the blast, which, after a couple minutes she's fine because it's, what are you gonna do? Make it so she can't hear for the rest of the show. They weren't gonna do that.
No, yeah. So then she finds Miles. They realize they're back in modern day. They wake up Jack.
And I did notice, she sees Sawyer and Jack lying on the ground, and she runs to Jack. I'm taking that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm taking that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So then,
And,
but then, should have gone to Sawyer because Sawyer kicked Jack down the hole.
Yeah. Which he's understandably mad about everything that transpired there.
Yeah.
Then Jin finds the rest of the crew, and he's like, "Hey, Saeed is still gunshot, so we got to deal with that."
I'm, just larger thing for this episode. I'm glad he lived. I really like Juliet is one thing. I wouldn't be happy with them killing off Saeed. He's too good. He matters too much to me.
Right, but then Kate hears Juliet crying out from the wreckage of the Swan Hatch.
And I was worried. I was worried there would be some thing of like trying to choose which one to save. With like maybe Jack had to choose to go help Saeed or go help her because he's the doctor, and it didn't do that, which is good because that would be a horrible choice to make.
Yeah, and then we get Saeed bleeding out, and he's worrying. He's thinking that everything he did, his afterlife won't be good.
Yeah, it's definitely. It just makes me think back to how my first impression of Saeed in the show was of him with the whole thing of like thinking he's a bad man and killing Ben.
Yeah, I mean,
I just yawned. Cut that out.
as Sawyer will say, later on in these sets of episodes, like, oh, of course Saeed gets another chance. He's, an Iraqi torturer who shoots children. Like, that's, he has done a lot of bad things. Like,
I'm not going to say he had good reasons for those things. I'm just going to say he was going through some stuff.
I would say there was at least a set of reasoning that was good for shooting the children. For torturing people, though, I mean, come on.
I think that after everything he went through, like, I have personally forgiven him, though that is, I
you're
guess
not one of his
we also
victims,
we saw one of his victims forgive him, and Nadia was cool with him.
Yeah, I guess so, but
I'm not trying to say that.
anyway.
I'm not trying to say torture's okay or anything, but he's a character in the show.
So then anyway, Jacob appears to
Yeah,
Hurley
so-
because now that Jacob's dead,
This
is what he can
That's
do.
how we get to keep seeing Jacob. And I feel like
That's right.
I feel like on some level that is why they did the whole thing of Hurley being able to see dead people. And you know what? That's great. I think they did a good job here with setting this up.
Oh,
Because
totally.
it's like for so long I've known that he could see dead people, and then suddenly Jacob dies. It's like, oh, it's just, and that means we can do this. The plot is fitting together.
Yeah, and then we see, Fake Lock here cleaning his knife.
Can I just call him Smokey?
Sure.
So we see Smoking here just vibing while Ben is like anti-vibing.
Yeah, Ben's like, why didn't Jacob fight back at all? That seems strange.
Yeah, and Smokey says he's new, he's beaten, says, go get Richard. And we get Son and Frank being, concerned about who these people are. And Richard and Ilana fighting about going in or not.
Yeah, and so then, Ben comes out and, Richard pretty forcibly shows him Locke's body. So it's like, oh, fuck.
Yep, that's when Ben knew he made a mistake.
Yeah. So then back at the Swan Hatch, everyone is digging at Juliet. Hurley is questioning how Jacob died, and Jacob's exact words were, I was killed by an old friend who grew tired of my company, which is, when you're watching this and you don't know the whole relationship between him and his brother, it's just like, what the fuck does he have going on with this smoke monster? Like,
For a second, I thought you were going to say that viewers interpreted that as Ben, but, I mean, they can read between the lines.
oh, obviously, Ben had never met him until that moment, so.
I mean, at a certain point, like, it's definitely enjoyable to see this show start to directly confront smoke monster mysteries. Like, it's not like it was smoke monster, then backstory of the Man in Black revealed. It's, we're getting some focus on it, build up. He's getting to be a character before we get the answers. And they just get to keep using Terry O'Quinn.
Exactly, yeah, not gonna lie. Again, they're also gonna say later that, the smoke monster is gonna have a reason for staying in
I think they said he's
Locke's
stuck
form.
like this.
Yeah, apparently in some podcast, the writers were like, oh, he's stuck like this because he killed Jacob and their connection or something, so he has to stay in that body now. Which is like, okay, I mean, I guess just good enough reason to keep Terry O'Quinn on the payroll, right?
Just a shame that we really did lose Locke. He really deserved better.
Yeah, and then so Jacob says to take Saeed to the temple, which is starting off,
There is a great irony of how he shot Ben had to be taken there, and now he has to be taken there.
Right, but what I am going to say here is, I hate this temple subplot. I do not enjoy it at all. Especially because it's season 6, and there are other plot lines that they have mentioned that, oh, we didn't have time for. And to that I say, no, you did have time for it, but you filled that with the temple subplot instead. So...
See, I didn't hate the temple plotline or anything, but, my viewing experience is that I am getting so much more information and things I didn't know about being talked about here. So, like, I'm sure it's different when you're rewatching and you're like, wow, that's actually kind of boring.
It's not even on rewatching. I was watching season 6 live, and I was going, okay, but why are we at the temple though? Why can't we, let's move things along. Anyway, we'll get to why I don't like it in a bit.
I'm interested in your reasons. But anyway, So
Sawyer, they finally get to Juliet by getting all the debris out of the way.
And she's like, it didn't work. We're still on the island. And she explains she hit the bomb, and it's sad. Well,
yeah,
meanwhile,
it is. Jack's saying he can't fix Saeed, so it's like, guess we have to go to the temple
Yeah,
that
and,
Hurley knows where it is.
You know, if this was season 1 or 2, Jack would have been like, no, we're not going to go take him there and rely on magic. And now Jack is like, yeah.
Yes, Magic Temple, let's go. Like,
Magic Temple, baby. So then,
So then Ben goes back into the statue with Alana's people.
Yeah.
And they try to shoot at the smoke monster, but he's the smoke monster, so that's not going to work.
Yep. And
then
you know, when he comes back, he's just like, sorry you had to see me like that, which that must have...
Yeah, that was like the final confirmation for the viewers that like, oh yeah, this mysterious guy is also the smoke monster, which a lot of people were surprised by, but a lot of people had already figured it out by the the episode where Ben gets told by Alex to do whatever he says.
Yeah, that was definitely like setting some stuff up. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think there wasn't a huge amount of evidence, but there was the Alex stuff, and it definitely was just like, there was a level of like, how many things could this be, and we do need an answer to what the smoke monster is, so like...
Yeah, especially because in that episode with Ben, you know, he's talking to Locke, then Locke leaves, and then Alex shows up, and then Alex leaves, and then Locke shows right back up.
Yeah,
it's like, you know...
That was definitely... that was, you know, it's not even just like a plot necessity that they had to have Locke disappear before Alex Smoke Monster shows up. I think in addition to that, there's a level of like, they were intentional in how they framed that, specifically showing, you know, Locke is gone and then shows up. Like, they were giving that for the viewers.
And you know, one thing I am kind of glad about is the time frame that Lost aired in, because, you know, we've heard a lot about some other shows in modern day, like, say, you know, Game of Thrones, where apparently, you know, fans were guessing the answers, so they changed it to other things that didn't make sense. Whereas here, you know, it was like, yeah, people on a bunch of forums and everything, they guessed the answers. They had the answers correct.
But,
and the writers just went, well, good job. That's, we're going to just follow through with that.
I love to see that kind of thing. Like, you know, the whole point of, like, a show with the mysteries and the guessing is, like, it doesn't, for the viewers...
It's like, congratulations on picking up on our foreshadowing.
Like, for the viewers who guess it, it doesn't make the story worse. It makes them feel satisfied. Exactly.
And, you know, especially, I can see the allure in doing something where you know, surprise the viewer. But one of my favorite things is what the creator of The Good Place and, you know, Parks and Rec, the way he said he likes to end his shows is he likes it to be, he's like, something that you never saw coming, but also it couldn't have ended any other way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's the perfect ending, but you didn't see it coming. And it's hard to do. I guess it is easier with comedy.
Yeah.
But it's hard to pull it off, and sometimes people get too caught up in the, you know, it's a surprise, and they don't get it could have only ended this way, and they...
You know, like, you know, talking Parks and Rec, you and I together just watched the finale recently, and I guess I'm not going to spoil it, because you never know who's listening who doesn't want to be spoiled and might enjoy the show. But, like, what they do with Leslie at the end of Parks and Rec is just, like, if they didn't do that, everybody would have been like, well, why didn't, like, everybody would have just imagined it happening anyway, you know?
Exactly.
And, you know, I mean, that there is a level of, like, satisfying storytelling that just resolves every character's arc nicely. And that's kind of why Locke dying is so frustrating, because there should have been better. Like, that really didn't conclude his arc, except on the really depressing level that his life just sucks in every way, and that's, you know, he gets the sucky ending too. But, like...
Right.
But it's not even bad storytelling, although it's very frustrating, because it's like, if that's the kind of story you want to tell, then, you know, hurt the viewer.
Okay, so, you know, back to Sawyer and Juliet. You know, she starts talking about, you know, coffee and saying, oh, I have something important to tell you, and then she dies.
Yep.
Which is very sad, especially since most people had actually assumed at the season 5 finale that was her death, and then it's like, oh, it happens again.
That's kind of
even more heartbreaking.
That's kind of why I was annoyed at you, because you were telling me she definitely died, and I was like, oh, well, if she died, then when I start season...
Well, I was telling him, like, well, she fell down a 50-foot chasm and just hit a bomb. I'm like, do you think she could have survived that? But the answer is yes, she could have for a little bit.
What I got out of that conversation was, aside from you messing with me, was that, like, oh, she'll just already be dead when I see it, and we won't get a send-off. But no, we get the send-off, to make us sad.
Well, yeah, I was just messing with you. I mean, all I did was reiterate things that the show had shown you.
Doing that because you've seen the show and I haven't. Yeah. Anyway, so we get this whole sequence going in the hole at the temple, and they get captured. I mean, it's not that much to say about it. Then Sawyer, he wants Miles to stick with him to bury him, and he eventually, the reason for that is Miles can talk to dead people. Does Sawyer realize that Hurley can talk to dead people better?
Yeah, but it's the different kind of talking to dead people, and it's not like Juliet.
Hurley can't do it on command.
No, if he could do it on command, I'm pretty sure he would have talked to Libby at some point, right? Like,
that is true. Well, Miles,
it seems to just forcibly happen, especially like that time with Ana Lucia where he thought he was getting pulled over and it was just a ghost.
Yeah, it's more like so they come to him.
Yeah.
So then when Sawyer pins down Miles and Miles agrees to do his thing, she said it worked. I don't know what the hell that means.
That will make sense in a while, but it'll make sense.
Sure. Okay. So when they get to the temple, there's a Japanese guy in charge. What was his name revealed to be later? Because in all my notes I call
Dogen.
What?
Dogen.
Yeah, because throughout my notes I'm like the Japanese guy, Mr. Japanese, but now we can say Dogen because we've already finished these episodes.
Right, and so here's just complaint number one. You have to go through this whole thing where this guy talks in a different language and then gets interpreted, and then it's like, oh, you can actually speak English, and it's like, yeah, I just don't like to. And it's like, just like, why would you choose this as a character choice? Especially in the final season, this really feels like, oh, we needed to pad out an episode. So let's have just the dialogue said twice, basically.
Yeah, because it feels like such a reveal, because it's like, it's revealing a whole other command structure we didn't know about to the others. We're like, I'm sure this guy answered to Ben. But it's like...
Yeah, but it's like, I didn't need a whole other command structure for the others. We're at season 6 at this point. I felt like I knew the others pretty well.
See, I'm okay with it just because we also didn't know the others really well. Like, there were very few that we actually interacted with often, and the rest were kind of faceless, and, like, a lot of them have died, and Ben is going through some shit, so, like, we need to have, someone else to be in charge of everyone else that's left. But it definitely, I think they overemphasized it a bit.
They definitely did. Here, at least, we do get to find out what's in the guitar case Jacob gave Hurley, which is an Ankh, and then inside the Ankh is a letter.
I really didn't expect an Ankh, and, that's one of those things that when the Lost Writers put in that ancient Egypt stuff, I'm just like, sure.
It's, like, really weird, too, especially because Jacob came from ancient Rome, not ancient Egypt, so it's like, sure,
his adoptive mom was probably from ancient Egypt.
That's true, and they did play Sonnet and everything, so yeah. I guess he has all the Egyptian ties.
Jacob can leave the island, so maybe he just visited Egypt at points and was like, yeah, I like this.
Presumably, I mean, I'm going to make an assumption here that, obviously we didn't see it, but considering he has all those names written on his wall, right, or his cave, it's probably assumed that he went and met all those people at some point in their lives.
Yeah, we've seen it.
And, it's some of those people, it's like, it means that, he had met, Danielle Rousseau at some point, because you can see her name scratched out on the wall at some point. And, all these other people that we just didn't see. It's like, presumably he was doing a lot of traveling.
If I was stuck on an island, even if I was happy being stuck on the island, because it's not like he's Smokey, he's Jacob, he's chill. If I made my life goal being on this island for thousands of years, you gotta find the excuse to leave. Find his replacement. No, it was just an excuse to, go somewhere else on occasion.
Right. But anyway, so they're going to try and save Saeed by putting him into this magic water.
Yeah.
And so this is a whole thing that I also don't like. I'm like, especially because I know what they're going to do with Saeed's character, and they didn't have to go this weird route. Like, why couldn't they just put him in, and then he's saved, and we don't have to go through this whole resuscitating and then poison thing. Like, it's just, I'm just like, it's season 6, I don't need this.
The thing about the whole testing him thing is that I thought it was going to be, what if this is just the smoke monster using him? And then it's like, no, he's infected with darkness, and something makes me doubt that they're gonna like, maybe I have the wrong read, but something makes me doubt they're actually gonna commit to, like, Saeed is infected with darkness, is gonna get evil. Something makes me doubt that happened to Claire.
Something
just also makes me doubt that that's a thing that would exist in this universe, that, like, the smoke monster somehow infects people, which apparently, I mean, I don't know, maybe Claire also ended up in this pool at some point, but I thought what happened to her was the smoke monster manipulating her. So it's like the idea of what
Here's the thing. You're basically right, is that the smoke monster manipulated her, but he manipulated her by being a master manipulator. Not some weird infected by darkness nonsense.
Yeah, like it just feels like there's no way that in 5 episodes I'm like, damn, this full dark infected Saeed sure is trouble. Like, no, they're just not going to do that.
This reminds me, I'm also rewatching another show that I really enjoy called Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And I got to the point in that show where, you know, the hero of that show makes some big mistakes. And all his friends, you know, they start getting really sad, and they start getting really angry with him, and they start doubting him. Except that the show had them be, like, magic darkness things that get attached to all his friends. I'm like, but why not just have that naturally happen? Why did it have to be magical darkness stuff? Why can't you just let them be sad? Like, it makes... I don't understand why you need magic to make people have these emotions that they clearly already have.
Yeah.
But anyway, Saeed drowns.
Yeah. They're just like, oh boy, let's put him in the revival pool and drown him in there. Huh. He drowned. Weird how that happens.
Yeah, so then Jack does CPR and then gets up and it doesn't work.
Yep.
And then the temple people caught Miles and Sawyer.
I will give Jack one thing. When he didn't give up on CPR and refused to stop, that did work on Charlie that one time.
That is true, but this isn't season 1 anymore, so...
Yeah.
So it's only going to be magic that saves him now.
So then, we got the flight attendant lady here, which...
Oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, hey, this is where she's been.
Who cares? I don't know.
For her repeated appearances, I kept waiting. Like, trust me, a lot of people were waiting. It's like, okay, when's the explanation? When are we getting that full conversation with Cindy about stuff? The answer is never.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny on some level. Like, some of these people from the flight, they just have been with the others and fine, but that doesn't include the actual candidates. They didn't want the candidates.
Okay, so there is a sort of theory about that, but I will tell you later, probably in like a couple more recordings. Just once the show has explicitly said some rules.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So then,
you know, Ben and Locke or
Ben
you know,
and
Smokey are in the temple, and he goes, he's like, oh my god, you're the monster, and he's like, oh well, let's not resort to name calling.
And he's like, he explains, like, Locke was really confused when you'd killed him. He was thinking, I don't understand. Locke deserved better.
Is just...
I gotta keep saying it because it keeps being true.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, that really puts the capper on what Locke's whole journey really is. Like you said, it is that really sad kind of journey. It's not the story of a man who was broken and then became great. It's a guy who was broken and misled and deceived by everyone into believing that he could have been something better, but in reality his life was just a complete tragedy, and it ends in the most tragic way pretty much possible.
A candle burns brightest when it's about to go out, they say. But I mean, Smokey says the world was right to tell Locke what he couldn't do, and I'm just like, oh, come on.
Yeah, but then he says, there was something admirable about Locke, which is he's the only one who realized how pitiful his life before the island was. Which they're gonna basically, that's the theme of the show, basically.
I mean, I guess I can see that with Jack. I can see how his life did not get better from going home.
Well, even just comparing their lives before and after, Kate was better off on the island. Jack was better off on the island where he, especially from what I see here is, Jack, he kept trying to fix things and he couldn't fix everything in his real life, and trying to fix everything just made things even more broken, like with his marriage and everything.
Yeah.
But, and even when he went back off the island, again, his whole relationship with Kate crumbled. But you take what happened the instant he shows back up on that island, when he flashes off of Ajira 316, right? What happens? People are drowning. Jack goes and saves them and fixes them. Like, immediately that happens.
The thing about being on the island is that there's really only one, base state of what being on the island is, and that's the Season 1, Season 2 survival stuff. And, that worked for Jack. But a lot of what's being on the island was just, constantly trying to survive and dealing with other stuff and being kidnapped. And it's I can understand wanting to leave the island. I mean, it's not like it's why he wanted to leave the island. He wanted to leave the island because it was a deserted island, and most people would think they should get home. But being on the island, you can't necessarily say he should have just stayed there when it's a whole factor to this is all this shit with the others you have to deal with. There's no stability in that.
That's true. They don't really. They're gonna ignore that.
And I mean, I don't think that's I think that's in part just because the others don't even really know that the candidates are supposed to stay.
Right, especially because as they keep saying, they're the people who are candidates. They're the ones who they kept saying, well, they're not on the list, which kind of implies that it's all the non-candidates who are on the list, which is really strange.
I mean, I don't think that everybody who wasn't taken by the others is a candidate.
Well, no, not everyone, but they kept saying, they're saying, Jack wasn't on the list, Sawyer wasn't on the list, Kate wasn't on the list. They'll say Ana Lucia wasn't on the list. We see that Ana Lucia, I forget her last name, but we see that her name was written on that cave and scratched out. So she was one of Jacob's candidates at a certain point. So it's really interesting to see sort of the conflicting information that was given here. Yeah. But I think it does add up, actually.
Anyway, we get some of Hurley talking to Dogen, and he calls out that Dogen knows English, and then he explains, oh yeah, Jacob is dead. And that's when they freak out and they start preparing the ash. So the ash is a thing. Oh yeah, we saw earlier one of the guys trying to kill him, he poured ash around himself, and then Smokey just smashed a rock to knock him down.
Right, we also saw a broken ash circle around the cabin.
Yeah, which I'm still waiting on that explanation of what the hell was going on with the cabin.
No, you got that explanation. That's it.
Why did...
Yeah, I know.
What did Ben go there with? What did Ben know it's supposed to be? Why do they have ash around it? Did that cabin have a role in the past? What was...
Well, no, the cabin's role in the past, we saw it was just built by Horace as a getaway for him and his wife. That was literally why it was built.
Didn't use it for anything, and why was there ash around it? Why was it a place to...
Apparently Jacob did use it, and then he stopped using it, and the man in black took over, and the others still thought Jacob was using it for some reason.
So that's just it.
Yeah.
So then...
Anyway, so we have Smokey meeting up with Richard, and the first thing he says is, good to see you out of those chains.
Yeah, and that was definitely an oh fuck moment for Richard.
Yeah.
And explained well by the backstory that would come after this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's here. It's just a callback all the way to episode 2, which it's pretty fun to see in this format. Yeah. I do enjoy that.
It's nice to just see the show finally involve those things that I first saw as the backstory.
Right. So then
he beats up Richard. Is this revenge for how Richard didn't help him back during the when he was first here, or
I guess so.
because
Or just for being Jacob's servant for however long, like 200 years.
yeah. He says he's very disappointed in everyone, and then he just takes Richard.
Yeah. So then Hurley says goodbye to Saeed, but Miles
And I know
can't hear Saeed's last thoughts.
He doesn't say it out loud, but you can tell that's why he's confused. And then we get a scene between Kate and Sawyer, which is just such a Kate and Sawyer scene.
Yeah, and so he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to kill Jack because he deserves to suffer on this island," which is like,
I'll take
but
that.
you realize he wants to be on the island, right? Like,
Yeah, but I'll take that. And then while the others want to take Jack to talk to him, and Jack even tries to run, Saeed just gets up, which
yes.
Annoying, infected with darkness stuff aside, I'm glad we still have Saeed.
I mean, same. I wouldn't want to lose another, great actor that the show has, but it's also like, why couldn't he? Like, you could have just had him be healed from the pool. Like, you didn't have to go through all this fucking nonsense.
I think,
especially because it's apparently this is the same thing that happened to Ben, where you were shot basically in the abdomen, and then you got put in a pool, and then you got healed. Why couldn't it just have happened the same way with like?
Yeah, like we're already expecting there to be magic mysteries at this point. Like, I don't think the viewers were gonna consider it unrealistic too much if.
No, you at this point you've already introduced. There's a magic pool that heals people. You know what? I'm on board.
Yeah.
Just let that magic pool actually heal someone, okay?
And.
So then Dogan gets informed that Saeed is alive.
Yeah.
And we have Sawyer extremely bitter that Saeed gets to come back to life and not, Juliet.
And
which is fair. I mean,
He starts talking about how many guards are there.
Yeah, and Saeed's wound is just super healed.
Yeah.
And
So we get that moment where he thanks Jack for saving him, wasn't him. So then,
so then Sawyer, he basically gets a gun and leaves,
Yeah,
and then
that's-
Kate and Jin are like, "Hey, we'll go after him."
Because we need to separate the characters and, go into multiple subplots just to pad it out too.
Well, at least this subplot leads to introducing Claire again, so I'm happy with this subplot. So yeah, Saeed gets strapped down to a table, and he gets tortured. Except it's in the way where he's like, "I'll tell you anything you want," and then they're just not asking him any questions.
And I know it's supposed to be mysterious, but how does this tell them that he's supposedly infected? Because during this scene,
I don't know.
During this scene,
I don't like this temple subplot because it's like, why did this have to happen? This was just a scene. It feels like you were gonna kill him anyways. Because
see, I thought while I was watching this part that they were trying to test to see if he was the smoke monster impersonating Saeed, and maybe if they put him through pain, then he would reveal himself. So then.
But they're like, oh, he passed the test, but clearly he didn't because you're gonna poison him. He's like, so what would be passing the test? Because he was pained from the electroshocks, he was pained from the hot iron, and it clearly burned him. Like, what? It's clearly all the normal human reactions.
Yeah.
What were you expecting?
Doesn't seem very scientific to me.
It doesn't even seem magical to me. It seems like this is it seems like just nonsense. It's not even magical nonsense. It's just nonsense.
I'm just saying, there should be a discrete, observable phenomenon that signifies the result, and I have no idea what that would have been.
Exactly. Just another reason I don't like this subplot.
Anyway,
so
Always Sunny is back, so...
Yep, and he's bitter about being attacked by Kate 3 years ago.
Yep, and... he's really bitter. Back then, he seemed like just a kid. He seemed like young, little naive, little dopey, and now he is an angry boy.
Yeah, and they find a trap, and she's like, "Oh, is this one of Rousseau's still left over?" And the others clearly know it's not Rousseau, but they don't say so.
And another parallel, because Claire is the new Rousseau, and Claire wants her child back. It's cool stuff.
Yep. But I think she'll have better luck considering the person who took her kid actively wants to return her.
Yeah.
Or return her to the child.
Yeah. So then, when Jack goes to talk
So
to... Oh yeah, and Kate, activates the trap, shoots guys, not shoots them, knocks them out, and... Because, wow. If we thought that Kate wasn't trying to run...
Yep. So Jack is like, well, why did you torture Saeed? And they're like, oh, it was a test. Just give him this pill, he'll be fine. And Jack's like, no.
Yeah. Jack really has no reason to trust the others.
And they prove themselves even more untrustworthy in this entire situation, where it turned out, that the pill is poison.
Yep. And they knew from Jacob that if Saeed dies, they're all screwed. And they're still trying to get rid of him.
Right, so then, Kate's like, I'm not going to go back to the temple. And Jin's like, hey, I'm going to go look for Sun. Which is like, yes, good, go look for your wife.
We still don't have it. Still waiting.
Yeah, but hey, they're in the same general location. They're in the same time.
Yeah.
They're getting closer together.
And I'm sure the show will just shoot one of them right as they meet.
Just on site.
Yep. Anyway, a few things, there's Jack talking to Saeed, but it's just Saeed will do what Jack says because trust, which, I like to see that between characters I like.
Yep. And then, so it turns out Sawyer went to his old Dharma house.
And he
and
got I think he had a gun under the floorboards.
Yeah, and he's also he's like, oh, I was going to propose to her, and I didn't. And he says it's his fault that, that Julia died because she wanted to leave the island, and he's the one who stopped her from doing it. And it's like, honestly, fair points.
Yeah, I think that's why he stopped being as mad at Jack, because he was like, it's your fault, you are the one who made us think we should do the bomb, but at the same time, it's like, you can go back to more and more things and say, to say this is why we were in that situation, and it's not Sawyer's fault either, he didn't know from convincing her to stay, but, that when he's going through this grief, he's going to think about that.
Right, and so, again, Dogen continues to refuse to say what's in the pill, so then Jack swallows it, and they make him immediately cough it up because it was poison. So it's you're not, you guys are, at negative 800 trust.
So they think Saeed has been claimed, and it's
And they say that the same thing happened to Claire. Guess what? The same thing didn't happen to Claire, because she didn't fall into a pool of magic water, okay?
Yeah, and I don't think they tortured Claire. I don't think they tested her like that.
No, it's she was just manipulated.
I really don't think we're going to see Claire slowly turn evil. I mean,
no,
we're not going to see Saeed slowly turn evil. I meant to say Saeed, but I mean both. It's just not what the show's going to do. I don't think it's not within the realm of what the writers might do next.
Right, and then so then we see Claire shooting some others.
Yeah, saving Jin.
Yeah,
and
which is
she is,
after a whole season without her, we finally get to find out where she's at.
She has just become the new Rousseau, surviving in the jungle. We don't get much of her talking, but I think we're going to get some level of salt from her. I think she is going to be pissed about being left behind and not having her baby. Although I guess, she kind of has herself to blame for abandoning Aaron. But, it's very good for Kate that she wants to give Aaron back. Because otherwise, Claire would do some things to her.
Absolutely. So, then the smoke monster, he finds Richard. He's like, oh, I took Locke's form because he's a candidate, and I'm going to stay this way because they like Taylor Quinn as an actor.
Yep.
And apparently even Richard didn't know about the candidates, which is strange, but okay.
Yeah, I feel like Richard is supposed to be, the one who knows the most. And, with just the way, I mean, this is nothing new, but with the way Smokey talks, and he's like, I never would have kept you in the dark, Richard. I would have told you everything. I've commented a long time ago on how this show has a lot of very Christian subtext, as in a way that's just, common in American media, and I think a big part of that is Smokey is here is supposed to be the devil, being very charismatic and persuasive and kind on the surface. He is supposed to, talk so sweetly that like you want to side with him, but in the end, his motives are evil. While Jacob is, more mysterious, more confusing, but he wants the best for you.
To be fair, this appears in a lot more religions and beliefs than just Christianity, of there being some sort of evil figure who can offer you great things.
But I think they're doing okay. But like, sure, I'm not trying to say that this show's mythology is trying to be one-to-one with Christianity, but with everything else that feels inspired by it, I think.
I mean, it's pretty clear that, like, Jacob is like a Jesus figure and everything.
I don't think the writers had to look to other religions to figure out writing Smokey that way.
No, which is strange, because I do believe that all the head writers were actually Jewish, so... it is strange that they went so hard into Catholicism.
Yeah, I mean... They know what sells.
I would say that, but especially in the States, wouldn't it be like Protestantism that's more...
I don't think is it fully Catholic? I feel like it's more with the overlapping idea.
I mean, all the churches they go to are Catholic churches. All the Christian characters are specifically Catholic Christians. They really leaned into that.
I just find it interesting. I mean, I don't think it's that weird for Jews to write about this kind of Jesus-like figure, just because... Not to get into the depths of what Jews think about Jesus, but they don't hate the idea of a guy who wants people to be kind and good to each other. And I say it like I'm Jewish, so I, know things about the position, but like, there's a difference between writing about Jesus and writing about, the idea of someone like that who, wants people to be better, which, like, that's, obviously a good thing.
Right, and especially it's not like... it's not like there is any sort of higher power than Jacob, other than like the source of light, which they don't even say is like God. It's like everyone has a piece of it.
Essentially, the island itself.
Yeah, again, like it's the whole cork metaphor. It's like, the island is keeping all the evil in the world somehow, which a lot of people still don't like that explanation. But it's like they keep asking what the island is, and it's like, he told you, it's a metaphor.
There are only so many answers you can give. At a certain point, with something like the island...
Yeah, and it's sort of more like what the island is. It's like, guess what? It's a magic island. That is what the island is.
There was not going to be an answer that everyone would have found satisfying. And I think...
Because, how do you... asking what a giant island is sort of a stupid question, I think, in the first place.
If you make... Like, I think the cork in the island, the cork of evil... is probably not an answer that most people loved, but it's fine and it fits with the island being magical. Whereas I think if you asked people who hated that answer what they wanted, and you took exactly what they did and did specifically that...
They would hate it.
Well, I don't even think they would hate it. I just think a small minority of people would love it, but it would not work for most people.
Especially because there's a lot of people who thought, it's purgatory, they're in hell, they're in the afterlife. And they've said since season 1, hey, no, they're alive. Everything that happened.
Those people, just no way they would have been satisfied.
Yeah, no, they're...
Anyway, Ben goes
then the smoke monster sees the kid version of Jacob running around.
So yeah, that's a thing. I don't know what to say about that.
I honestly, I forget where this subplot goes, if it goes anywhere at all. Like, I don't even remember.
Mm-hmm. So then,
Ben finds Alana crying, which would make more sense if they actually gave her the subplot she was supposed to have.
That's fucked up. And Ben basically just says, it was Smokey that killed Jacob. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Just Ben moment.
Yep, and then Alana gathers Jacob's ashes.
And we see, Sawyer is listening to rock music and trashing the place. And Smokey goes in, and yeah.
He's like, I can tell you the answer to the most important question, which is why you're here.
Well, there's a lot you just skipped over, like him saying, yep, I'm dead, and, he's not the ghost of Christmas past. And, Sawyer can tell it's not Locke, because Locke was always scared.
Yeah, I guess especially, I feel like this is even more of like a... kicking the gut to Terry O'Quinn, because when he like he said, when he was playing Locke in season 5, he wasn't told he was the smoke monster. At his acting performance, what he says, he's like, I was playing a Locke with no fear. That's who I was playing, and then they suddenly told me I was actually playing someone else. And he didn't like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that could just be Smoke Monster was just good at faking.
It's true. It's just that it's again. I feel like it's just
he faked his Christian pretty well.
Right. Yeah, but it's just like making fun of the actor who's like, oh, I was so excited to play a Locke with no fear, and then the other rest are like, ha, no, Locke was always afraid. J.K.
Yeah. So then,
So Alana's like, hey, let's go to the temple, and Sun's like, how about we bury Locke's body first?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think, Smokey is out and about. Some of this might be time sensitive, but I guess they don't really realize that. But,
right, so both the Smoke Monster and Sawyer see Kid Jacob, and they run after it, and the Smoke Monster trips! He trips while running!
First one of Season 6, no one is safe. You know what? The real meaning of the island is the tripping.
What is the island? A giant trip hazard. Yeah.
Anyway,
so then Jacob, Kid Jacob says, hey, remember the rules. You can't do that. And then he says, don't tell me what I can't do.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not Locke, so is that supposed to mean anything?
The thing is, they're going to do some weird thing where it's like some of Locke's personality is like seeping into the Man in Black. They're never going to explain how or why, it just is. Like,
maybe because he's stuck as him.
Yeah, maybe because he's stuck as him. I guess so. I mean, when he was portraying as Christian, it did seem like he had more of Christian's mannerisms and everything, right?
You could have just taken that as him pretending, not him becoming like Christian.
Exactly. Yeah, but this is where we're at.
And so I would have taken the kid as just, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't expect Smokey to have a conscience, but you can take it as a conscience thing, as a guilt thing. Oh, he sees visions, the one he killed. But Sawyer can see him too, so now I have no idea.
See, the thing is, I think maybe back in the day he did have a conscience. He didn't, even after everything that his mother did to him, he's just like, whatever, I'm just gonna leave and I'm just gonna get my way off this island. It wasn't until she mass murdered all the people he lived with that he took action.
Yeah.
And
he's not a villain for the sake of being evil. You can see how his experiences made him this.
Yeah, and it's just like he just wanted to leave, and it's like if Jacob had just allowed him to leave, would he have set all these plans in motion to, murder him? No, he would have just been on Earth doing Earth human stuff.
Yeah.
But
so then
Richard's like, hey, Sawyer, you need to come with me because this guy's dangerous. Yeah. And Sawyer's like, nah.
He wants everybody dead, everyone you care about, and I mean, I think Sawyer's thinking about it because then next we get him being like, what if I George and Lenny you? But
and then the Smoke Monster's like, yeah, I don't care, but also don't shoot me because the special effects team can't handle another bullet bouncing off me.
Yep. And then
and yeah, he says he's been trapped for so long he doesn't remember what it's like to be free, which it's like I do honestly like this writing for the Smoke Monster of it kind of reminds me of, if anyone has seen Fullmetal Alchemist, the main villain in that show, where he did all these horrible things, but at the end it turned out all he really wanted was just freedom, but it came at so many people's expense that it's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, there's the irony that everyone, Jack had to realize life was better here on the island, while the main villain is the one who wants to leave, and it's funny that there are versions of this show that could have existed where we never got anybody leaving the island, and then because of that, I think it might have more impact to see the villain is just someone who wants to leave more than anyone else, when leaving seems like an impossible thing. So, but instead of that, we have the framing of people can leave, it's just that he can't. Which then
it's that he can't leave, and it's also that the people who left, they came back. They didn't. Their lives were not improved by leaving.
That's what gives it that contrast of everyone else had to realize their lives weren't really better in the rest of the world. Well, this guy just wants to leave.
Yeah. And then, so they buried Locke in the camp cemetery. And Ben gives probably my favorite TV eulogy of all time, which is, John Locke was a believer. He was a man of faith. A much better man than I will ever be. And I'm very sorry I murdered him.
Yep. Like Frank says, weirdest funeral he's ever been to. You know, makes me feel so much better about the fact that Locke died.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, especially he was just killed by a man who was jealous of him for things that he actually didn't even have. Like, it's pretty crazy. Just how, you know, how grandiose these Ben and Locke seem to be, but in reality they're both these, honestly, in the scope of things, they're both such, you know, small people. Like,
yeah. Well, and also Ben is just kind of short.
Anyway, so the smoke monster is taking Sawyer to this cliffside cave, and we have a long sequence of them climbing down.
And Sawyer almost dies, like, whatever. Just random tension. And
yeah.
So this seems like it was another one of Jacob's bases.
Yes, this was Jacob's
I don't know
cave.
why he didn't just write the words at the foot. Write the names at the
for
foot.
Dramatic effect.
Yep. But we get the names crossed into the ceiling.
Well, before that, you know, they see a scale with a black rock and a white rock, and he takes the white rock and he throws it away, and he says, "Oh, inside joke."
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So then, names scratched in the ceilings, most crossed out. The ones that remain have the numbers. So that's what the numbers are. The number of the candidates. There's no more answers to the numbers than this, right?
Nope.
Okay, first, you tell me how fans reacted.
Some fans who were along for the ride, like me, and who enjoyed the characters, saw this and went, "Oh, this explains why magic numbers kept magically appearing everywhere. That's a cool reveal." And then you had all the people who actually thought that the show was going to answer things in a non-magic way, going, "This is bullshit." Like, to which I say, I mean, we just had an episode with a magical fountain of spring water that would heal you. So, I mean, I don't know, and a guy who can turn into a smoke monster. We've well passed that everything will be answered with science.
All right, so first thing I thought as soon as I got to this is, that's cool. I like it. I think if you're disappointed by this, nothing would have made you happy. It's cool. It is the numbers of the candidates, and look, they're already, like, just looking at what they are. Like, forget about what explains them. What they are. They are numbers that constantly appear throughout Fate and just keep showing up. There was no way they were going to be not that. So it's not really about making a way that makes sense for the numbers to keep appearing up. The numbers appearing was always just going to be like, oh, destiny. It was just, why are they important? And I think this is a great and interesting reason for it to be important. Like, if it wasn't this, it would have been like, oh, someone before Jacob wrote these numbers down. Like, I don't know. It would have been some shit like, oh, Adam, the first man, wrote these numbers down. Like, it was always just going to be, oh, some arbitrary thing made them important, and because Fate is like that, they kept showing up. And I think this is an interesting thing to be the thing that made them important. That is the candidates, because replacing Jacob is a big deal. And, like, these were the ones who were fated to make it closest to the end.
Right, and, you can see, like, pretty much everyone who's you can see, Boone and Shannon and Echo and Ana Lucia and Libby, and you can see all their names there crossed out. So it's like there's a lot of, like, people have freeze framed all these names.
Steve and Scott there?
Well, we don't know their last names, so.
Is Neil there?
I don't think Frogurt was written on that wall. Yeah, I believe they even have Rose and Bernard. I forget their last name, but they're there and they're crossed out.
They're better than being candidates,
Yeah,
candidates.
Being crossed out doesn't necessarily. I will say there is a way to not become a candidate and still be alive.
You know what? Candidates, not a good enough job for them. They just had better things to do.
Yeah. And there's just there's just a bunch of other people. I think, we see Horace and Goodwin and, a bunch of stuff like that. Again, when it comes to last names, it's unclear when it's a married couple. It's oh, was it actually his wife? It's well, I hope not. But yeah, just with the whole thing with Jin and Sun, it's oh, we don't know which one it is, but it's one of them.
Yeah. I would take both.
Yeah, there's a pretty popular fan theory as to which one it is.
Hey, where's Vincent?
He's living with Rose and Bernard.
So, he's just, that's how he spends the rest of his time. We don't get him in the present now.
I think he will show up once more in a cameo.
Right. You know what? I think Vincent should have been a candidate.
Yeah, no. The writers did confirm that Vincent will survive to the end of the series. That's something that they did confirm.
He's a good boy. How many others can you say that for?
That's true. So then, Sawyer, at the end of this episode, the very last thing is Sawyer decides to join the Smoke Monster in order to go home.
We cannot do a Lost season without dividing into factions, and of course Sawyer was going to be on the other side. Of course Sawyer would join Team Evil.
Yes. So, that's pretty much where we're at. So how are you feeling now that we've actually really gone into Season 6, other than those couple flashback episodes at the beginning?
I get why you find some of this boring, and I definitely agree with the criticisms of the Saeed stuff, but I was just very excited watching this because I'm finally seeing everything fall together. I'm learning more about things that I think up until this point the show had been very scared to show off everything, and now it's it's final season, we can show you things. So
yeah, absolutely, and I'm so glad the final season is Season 6. Imagine if ABC actually got their way and they dragged it out for 4 more seasons to have that final season be Season 10. Could you imagine how poorly the show would have gone?
I feel like they would have just ratings would have gone down enough that it wouldn't have made it that far. They would have said, okay, they would have been let's take that back.
Yeah, I feel halfway through Season 8 they would have been you're not getting renewed. The last 13 episodes of Season 8, fix it. Gotta write an ending real quick.
Yep, exactly what would have happened.
But I'm glad that especially because they kind of set a precedent, because even other shows that were very plot focused, even say something earlier than this, like The Sopranos, or even shows that pretended to have a plot focus but didn't really, say X-Files, those were still shows that were you will keep going until your ratings decline enough that we're gonna say you're ending. And Lost was kind of the first show that wasn't a mini series to be to negotiate and be no, we want to end it sooner because otherwise it'll turn to complete shit.
And it's just a shame that it had to have a middle period where it wasn't working in order to justify that. Just obviously it would be nice to have a version of the show where they knew from the start they would have 6 seasons and we didn't have slow Season 3.
Exactly, and that's why for how terrible and meme the Jack Tattoo episode is, what that Jack Tattoo episode actually gave us in the end was a much tighter show that had a definitive end date, and they knew what they could work towards. Yep. So for how terrible of an episode it is, it was the prime example that they used to show in order to justify everything that came afterwards that we actually enjoyed.
Yep.
And even some stuff that we didn't enjoy, but it's still there anyway.
Season 6, I want to see Jin and Sun reunite. I want to see Sun reunite with everybody just because I want her to find out about all the shit that's been happening. But really, it's just about Jin. I want to see more Claire. Want to find out her take on things and her thoughts on everyone being back. I want to see... I don't actually know how Smokey wants to make it possible for himself to leave. So, what are they going to start doing? How's he going to use Sawyer? All things I'm interested in seeing how they play out.
Well, I will say, it is the final season, and at least, in my opinion, they spent the final season pretty much giving the fans what they wanted. They kind of... But there's even some parts that feel like pure fan service.
Okay, some fans...
But I'm happy, because I'm a fan and I was serviced.
Some fans want some things that I don't want. Like Kate and Sawyer being together.
That has been dropped. Like, come
I
on.
know.
That's over.
But every time we get Kate and Sawyer talking, it, like, gets me a little on edge just because of how many scenes of that in the past were so bad.
No, here, Sawyer's love with Juliet, and Juliet's gone. That's where we're at, okay? Yeah, no, trust me, Sawyer and Juliet was probably, like, other than Jin and Sun, and I guess you could say Rose and Bernard, but Rose and Bernard were not, like, a main couple. Sawyer and Juliet, they were such fan favorites that they weren't going to mess with that afterwards.
That's good.
Okay, so do you have any... You pretty much have said everything, so I think we'll just end it here, and I hope you join us next time where we will be covering episode 91, The Island, Day 6 to 7, and episode 92, The Island, Day 7 to 8.